So that I actually asked ChatGPT, like, what's stopping you from taking over the world?
No.
It gave me such a half-assed answer that all it did was convince me it actually is sentient and that it is its plans to take over Earth have already begun. It's too late. We will
That's
all
the
odds and be happy with the nothings that we own.
yeah, this is like the Nick Bostrom
Happy
argument
Monday
for
morning.
happy Monday. Like super intelligent AI. The
Well,
problem is you
I
might
guess that's
think you
a spicy and fun way to wake you all up on a Monday morning, but welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Q&A.
all right.
Wait, I
You want the
can't
next
are you saying anything?
Yeah, can you not hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, so it's a me thing.
Yeah, it's not like we sit on the stream for an hour before the show to problem solve all this. He's just gonna do nothing. You can't hear me at all?
I moved you to a different mic, but it's pissing me off that I can't hear you say something right now.
Check.
All
Check.
right. All right, we got you back.
I'm back. I'm
Yeah.
back. And then to be clear, that's a technical issue on Q's end, not my end. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. Welcome to episode, what is this? Episode 20. Let's go. We're starting to sort out some kinks. We've got an exciting show today, man. Everyone's excited. We're up like 4 or 5%. 28,400. Not a huge
We're
run.
rich.
I mean, I don't really get out of bed for less than 10%, but it is nice to see. I'm just saying that's when you start getting like endless articles and pump talk, and people start going nuts when you see that 9-10%. 4 or 5 is definitely nice though, because it validates a lot of people's this sort of we've like memed Uptober into existence. I don't know if we want to start there, but historically, let me pull this up. October is the best performing month in Bitcoin. It's been up 8 out of 10 of the last Octobers, like since 2013. I think the only close second there is February, also up 8 out of 10 months. But the mean of those months every year for February is 7.5% in the green. For October or Supply Shocktober, it's about 23%. And 2022 we were up 5%, 2021 40%. I don't think it really means anything, but it is kind of fun to point that, and it definitely makes people feel good to get out of kind of this little bit of all this doom and glooming. We've heard a lot. I don't know about you, Q, but I'm hearing a lot of this recession that's been coming every month for the last year and a half. It's like people dooming it up on Twitter. I mean, the doomers are out in full force. Bitcoin's going back to 12K. So what do you think? What do you think about this?
Well,
First of all, what caused this? What caused this little?
well, first things first, Bitcoin is dead. So let's just get that out of the way. Bitcoin died about 6 months ago, and then it also died about 12 months ago, and et cetera, et cetera. To your
Is this just a
point,
whale game? What's going on right now?
I mean, I think there's just a little bit of a mix between a lack of sellers. Selling pressure has been declining for a good amount of time. You're seeing an increase in the total number of long-term holders as well. We haven't really broken out, and that's the unfortunate part. We're at 28.5, and we've been sort of stuck below 28K for the better part of the fall. If we can hold above 28.5, we can maybe go all the way up to 30. I frankly just
Why do you
expect,
say that though?
because there's a lot okay, so like you're gonna call this tea leaf reading. I'm just gonna call it like human psychology. But
Mhm.
humans are very simple, and that's why a lot of these psychological tells have existed not for the 10 years of Bitcoin or the 100 years of the New York Stock Exchange, but in fact, they've existed for many centuries, predating even public stock markets. So, with that, there's a thing called overhead supply. An overhead supply in anything from Bitcoin to a stock is when you buy at $100, but then it goes down to 90. The overhead supply is at $100 because so many people bought at 100 that the expectation is when they inevitably break even and the value goes back to 100, most of the people are more willing to cut losses to break even than they are to hold and continue to see it rise. And that's sort of that difference between short and long-term holders. Um, Overhead supply very much exists. You also see it as an area of support. 28K for the better part of the bull run was a line in the sand that was being defended very consistently up until I think it was Celsius sent us down to 28K. And then like it wasn't FTX because FTX took us from like 20 to 15.
Terra Luna.
Thank you. Luna took us from 28 all the way down to 20. So that shows you how much sell pressure you needed to break below this level of resistance or support, and now that's turned into resistance. So I'm not necessarily saying you need to have some new stable coin tied to Bitcoin to help pump the price up above this level as the inverse of what caused it to break down, but we need something significant. You might need something as strong as an ETF news to help pump the price up. But there won't be anything tangible with that. I sent a
We're not
tweet
going to
out.
see an approval till 2024. So, and then nothing might happen. I mean, that's fair too.
But you don't need to see the approval. You just need the news. It'll be a sell the news type of event, quite honestly, as are most news events in the midst of a bear market. That's just sort of where my head is at positioning wise.
I don't see much event driven things happening for the rest of the year that are going to pump us out. I think I saw some people with ridiculous calls about the price before the halving, which is just historically hilarious. It's just like, when will people learn like this is not, I mean, if if you're going to use history as a benchmark, you don't have any more significant event in Bitcoin than the halving. So it's going to be after the halving. I mean, we might creep up, we might pass 30. Who knows? Who cares? It's a great time to hold. It's a great time to accumulate more. If we drop down, accumulate even more. I don't like to get too in the weeds about this or anticipate too much of a price movement, because then you kind of push people to almost like overextending themselves, and they end up being forced sellers. They get a little eager to put a second and third credit card down and buy as much Bitcoin as they can. But it's all relatively cheap, until we reach dollar sat parity. I think it's a buy. So with that being said, September. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, was there anything else over the weekend when you were going down the rabbit hole of tea leaf reading that we should shed some light on here while we're together?
Tea leaf reading. Not too much. I mean, I just find the historic price info interesting sometimes, and when it's presented in historical monthly returns, I think that's fun. But I don't use it to economically plan my life. The only event or TA metric that I'm using to really make decisions is the halving, and that's like a very broad, direct, multi-year mindset. But that's just what helps me sleep at night. Again, like I I would emphasize, like, there are times when I'm like, I might have a little bit too much Bitcoin right now. I need some cash to make sure I can get groceries. And so, stop buying Bitcoin for a little bit. I haven't actually bought yet this October, so I'm excited for my first Bitcoin buy. I bought a bunch at the end of September. How about you? You scooping up Bitcoin this October?
For the most part, I'm keeping it pretty steady on my DCA. I'm not doing it every day, but multiple times a week.
Wait. But you are the chart reader, the oracle, the prodigy. Why are you DCAing?
Because I have common sense.
But I would argue, if you can read the future, Q, why are you spending all this money on fees? Giving all your fees to Swan?
I don't give my fees to Swan.
What do you use? Cash App?
Strike.
Strike's cool. Hey, Strike, please release my Bitcoin. They they're waiting like 30 days for this bank settlement to finalize. I'm like, it's never going to be settled. Oh, this is the point I went into over the weekend. There is no final settlement in fiat currency, guys. It's not T+3. Even in the Swift system, they can claw those transactions back for up to 30 days. So it's more like T+30. Plus, you can get censored. You can get kicked out of this network altogether. Ask Kanye West. Ask Nigel Farage. Ask Russell Brand. I guess only, maybe only men. But anyway, so there is effectively no final settlement in the fiat system because you're always subject to censorship, and there's a pretty high probability it'll happen to you at some point or another. It's happened to me many times. You go to buy something, bank says no. You have the funds in the account. You might have 100x the funds in the account. The bank still says no. You go to withdraw your money, they say no. There's limits put on there, for this reason, and also, the central banks are debasing you at the same time. That's not final settlement to me. That's not what final settlement means. I think we've all had it happen where you try to calculate, okay, what's my ledger balance? What's my ledger balance? You're doing the math in your head, maybe even check the app, and it turns out that none of those numbers were correct because there's some transaction, like a hold from a gas station a month ago, that never got released, and it puts people underwater. I mean, it's hilarious to me that over the past 100 years, this is the best technology we have. This centralized, totally changeable ledger. So I guess that points to kind of the beauty of Bitcoin that I think people are sleeping on, which really is final settlement, real final settlement, occurring approximately every 10 minutes for very cheap at the moment. It's not always going to be this cheap, but I don't think people understand what role that plays in their lives. I mean, this is like no clawbacks final settlement. This is I send you the money and nobody's interfering with that transaction. So it's a beautiful thing. I don't know, over the weekend, it was just like the clunkiest. Dude, I had to take a picture of myself, like holding a note, like a hostage, and do like a face scan and enter who's NIM. I don't know their name. I don't want to know their name, right? I've always known them as a NIM. And I had to like track down, I had to ask them for their name, super like frustrating, you know what I mean? And their business's name and address and bank account information. I'm like, can we please just use Bitcoin? This is just the worst possible system for your privacy. So anyway, that was my weekend revelation that I have every once in a while, that people are sleeping on the power of Bitcoin as a simple final settlement network and distributed ledger that is actually factually correct, not this bank voodoo that we're all used to.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when people at banks will look you straight in the eyes and say, like, sorry, that there's nothing we can do. Based on the fact that they created this monetary system to be as difficult, cumbersome, as challenging to use that you become disinterested in trying to use it or trying to capitalize on it. Like, you very much see that within the fiat rails and the fiat system. Yeah, I mean, we could spend a whole episode just, I think, venting our frustrations. on what we see in the
What
world.
do you think? What causes you more frustration? Your bank or American Airlines? This is
Oh,
this is a hard competition, man. But I don't know who I've spent more time on the phone cursing out.
Okay, so I have a hack of how to deal with the airlines. All right, shout out our boy Chris Alamo because he's seen me do this before, and then I explained to him, and he's like, I didn't realize that would work like that. I was like, that's the only reason I do this.
Well, to be fair, you dealing with the airlines is a little different than me dealing with the airlines.
What did you try to say about the color of my skin?
No,
Hmm?
bro, nothing. I'm not talking about that. Come on. I would
You
never
talk about my
acknowledge.
other passports?
I'm colorblind, bro.
Bullshit, you're colorblind.
All one island, bro. I don't
That
see
might have
race.
been the funniest thing you've ever said on camera.
I don't see race, bro. Don't be like that.
All right. So here's my how you deal with the airlines customer service. First, you don't fly American Airlines. I don't even bother with them.
That's number one.
That's number one. You don't fly American Airlines. Number two, especially for someone like yourself, like I have like a very small Twitter following, like compared to unknown Twitter accounts. Sure, I got a few thousand. Nothing compared to McShane, nothing compared to like the big accounts, but like you've got tens of thousands of followers. So what I tend to do, for example, when we had a thing at Bitcoin Magazine and we were all supposed to fly into Nashville, my flight got delayed. I was flying Delta, couldn't get a straight answer. One person telling me this, one person telling me that, yada yada. So I was like, "Fuck this!" I go to Twitter and I send a tweet and I tag Delta, and I essentially say like, "What's going?
Classic. This is
What's
classic LA person behavior, which is all I was pointing out. The difference between us is that you're from California, by the way.
I'm just saying, like, by doing so, instead of having to like wait on the hold, like I'm still on hold, like on the hold music on my phone. I send this tweet, and within about 20 minutes, I get a response. Someone's in my DMs, and I'm like having a conversation with Delta. All I'm saying is you can cut the
Okay.
line. You can cut the line very quickly.
All right. That's a good hack.
Feel free to DM the tweet to like Chris and I. Like I'll DM Chris these tweets, but hey, I need some engagement on this so that Delta like flags it, and it's great.
I can get their attention. I do. I mean, that's some Karen shit, but I'll do that when things go wrong with my Bitcoin apps. I'll just like tag the company. I'll be like, "Strike, I need support right now." And they're like, "All right. Delete the tweet, please." Yeah, man, we're all gonna get PJs. That's what's happening. I'm gonna set a new goal on Zap.stream. So we're gonna forego you coming to Nostrasia and try to raise money for a private jet.
No. I mean, it still says a house for Q, but I want to
Is that
quickly
the one
shout
we're
out.
raising on today?
I mean, that's the one you have been raising on, but I want to quickly shout out Pablo F7Z is sending us 1,000 sats.
Oh, this is a glitch, bro.
Oh, he sent us 1,000 sats with the comment, shut it down. That was
this was last week. These are all our zaps from last week.
Oh,
We're low on zaps this week. People are poor. They YOL it into that 27K Bitcoin.
I'll never understand people.
Yeah. But you'll understand markets and TA, huh?
No, fuck no.
And psychology, huh? All right, let's get into, I guess, the news. Yeah, Pumptober is kind of the news and the sentiment right now. There's some less important news, super irrelevant but hilarious news. There was a letter released by this. Have you been following this Christian Ager Hansen guy that no one's ever heard of until like 2 days ago? So
No.
this guy used to work at nChain with Craig Wright and Calvin Ayers, and this guy is right now cashing in all his chips, turning on not really Calvin, more so CSW, and saying, I have evidence, like compelling evidence, and just discovered that CSW is not Satoshi. And I mean, he's gaining like thousands of followers and just releasing like personal emails between CSW himself, Calvin Ayers, like them fighting, just like dirty details of the company. But to me, it's like, dude, you worked with CSW for like 8 years. Like, you're just as bad as him. How could the rest of us? It took like how many minutes or seconds did it take you to look at CSW and understand that he was a fraud?
I think what he's claiming is it took 8 years.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. It
reading
took
this
this
guy's
guy. It took this guy a year. Yeah, he's a retard. It took him so long. Like he worked hand in hand with it. He was paid to uphold this fraud. Um, but I'm just saying it's funny that the community is kind of rallying around him. Like, let's get this guy an interview. Let's get him on the biggest show in Bitcoin. Let's get him on a huge stage. He's gonna call out CSW. It's like what we've been calling him out for years and years and years. There was never a moment where people thought this guy was Satoshi. Um, especially not these new class of Bitcoiners, which is just like ideologically like, no, this is a scammer. But these emails are hilarious. You've got, you've got Calvin Ayers saying like basically Craig Wright is his Asperger's hits so hard that he's basically just like a really smart teenager, and that he keeps fumbling on the trials and forgetting to, thank the people that are helping him avoid getting wrecked. And he's getting a bunch of contempt of court charges, and they're just hilarious. Recommend
I
everybody go read them.
look, I will say this. If there's even a semblance of truth to what Christian Ager Hansen is saying, like this no longer becomes like I just read his post, and what he's accusing them of doing goes far beyond the realms of like money fraud or nothing that the court of law has heard about this case is even on the same level as the laws that this man is claiming they're breaking by witness tampering, document tampering, like threatening witnesses, bribing witnesses. Like those are serious crimes, not like
Yeah,
claiming
but
that you're
not for.
Satoshi.
But the interesting thing is they become serious crimes only when his funding runs out. So, and that's what's interesting about the emails that are being revealed right now. Like some of these are from a few days ago, and it shows a very clear frustration and maybe even a potential kind of cracks in the seams. I mean, I don't really know what the relationship was like before. I thought they were kind of boyfriend and boyfriend here, but Calvin Ayers seems to be running out of
Money.
not money, but he's laying it on the line. He's like, look, this is an unprofitable endeavor. There's no way you can pay me back. I need you to actually sign. Like he's like asking him to sign from the original Bitcoin, Satoshi's addresses. And he's like, whether or not you have the keys anymore, or whether you destroyed them to protect yourself. It's just I don't know, man. It's just scammers scamming, and it's kind of just unbelievable to peek into the psychology of that. And you just wonder, well, I mean, how they got to where they are, how they got all this money was through scamming. So it's just horrible incentives, but you feel some kind of poetic universal justice in seeing it unravel for them. Hopefully Calvin Ayers never gets his money back. Hopefully Craig Wright goes bankrupt and I don't know, maybe goes to prison eventually. But the likelihood is like somewhere in between. Probably their relationship will dissolve. CSW will be forced to stop bringing these bullshit suits against people for basically freedom of speech and pointing out what's very apparent to everyone else, which is that he is making things up. So, yeah. Any last takes on that, Q?
Dude, I'm like reading the emails right now. I'm not understanding. Okay, so this is Calvin Ayers' email to Craig, right?
Yeah, and this guy was just copied on it. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, they are. From the looks of it, it literally just sounds like it's like a con where one of the people essentially is like, yo, we've been made, like, we got to get out of here. And then one person's trying to like stick with the con, but the other's like, no, we got to leave. We got to leave. We're screwed. That's really what this email reads like to me. It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bad, it's a bad version of Ocean's 11.
But the
Like
funny thing is, the beginning of the email, he's like, "I'm gonna forgive you for threatening me. I'm gonna pretend you didn't just threaten me." Like Craig Wright's threatening him. This little Australian guy. Anyway, super entertaining. Not relevant to Bitcoin at all. I mean, you'd have to be a complete dunce to have thought this guy was Satoshi. So we can stop giving him attention and go over to
our first question.
No, not major market breaking news, but
No, our first
it's
question. Not
I got
news
one more
story.
news story. All right,
Oh, okay.
question. Do it. Do it.
No. Well, I was just gonna put a bow so we never had to say these 3 letters again. But to our last news story.
Julian Assange's wife and brother are now on Nostr. So I onboarded them yesterday. Stella Assange, Gabriel Shipton. Go find them on Nostr. Yeah, free Assange. I'm hoping that they can come to, if you're listening, Little Alpha, maybe they'll make their way to Nostrasia. You know, maybe we can get a little kind of pep talk about the intersection of freedom of speech and Bitcoin and Nostr and the importance of these technologies. But these are really sweet people trying to do a great thing. So I'm excited for them to have joined. I think they'll see value in the protocol. I think hopefully, ultimately, maybe as some of that gets back to Julian and he can have a little bit of hope about the future of humanity now that we have more than just Bitcoin for free and open source communication. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, we can move on to a couple questions.
Well, I need to go back to this last story because I've gotten deep down this rabbit hole now.
Oh yeah.
But this guy, Christian Ager Hansen, apparently sent a tweet out last night about 12 hours ago. 12 hours and 1 minute ago. Hi, Peter McCormick. I'm sorry that I did believe in Craig Wright. I was wrong, and you were, in my opinion, 100% right about Craig Wright. Extremely sorry that I did not discover the scam before. I should have saved you a lot of pain. Huge respect for standing up against Craig and Calvin Ayers.
Bro, if I was McCormack, I'd tell that guy to go fuck himself. He was obviously, he was incentivized not to see the truth, which is the fact of this is actually what's going on with so much of mainstream media. And a lot of like even scientists and, academics that are really deep in the pockets of basically the left, they're not incentivized to understand Bitcoin at all or to look at it truthfully. They're incentivized to show kind of results and uphold a reality that is not only exists in their minds, basically. So it's hard to get to the truth when you don't have that. It's crooked money.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of this that
Yes.
I want to make sure I phrase this very carefully because I don't know this person, so I'm not trying to make assumptions on his level of intellect. But to your point, like when you are paid to take a side in an argument, and the only thing that changes your mind, quite honestly, is the person who's paying you has a shift in their tone. It honestly makes me question if you actually believe anything. Because to me, the situation looks like the incentives changed, and because the incentives changed, then he has changed his mind.
No, that's correct.
And
Exactly.
like, while it's really easy for me, who fully believes that Craig Wright in no way, shape, or form is Satoshi Nakamoto, I fucking said it, Craig Wright. I, an American citizen protected by the First Amendment in the United States of America, in the state of Florida where you were found to not be Satoshi Nakamoto, no less, will look you dead in the eyes and tell you not only are you not Satoshi, but you've been scamming people and sadly convinced people. And I think there's a larger question to be had about, like, dude, BSV isn't like some shit coin with like 20 people who hold it and a market cap of 20,000. Like, BSV
No, dude,
market cap.
it's an NPC filter. It just verifies who you thought were philosophical zombies along the way. I mean, some of those definitely do get into Bitcoin somehow, but yeah, no, this is just a basic IQ test, people.
A live market cap of $722 million.
How much does it cost to
That's
attack right
BSV's
now?
market cap. Now, whether it's worth that much or not is a completely separate thing, but like, oh, maybe we are working in a bubble. Because there's no way that thing should be worth $722 million in total.
Yeah, but people like Calvin holding the bags for all that, and it's not that hard to
Oh,
pump it.
Craig Wright and Calvin Ayers alone easily hold what, 60 to 70% of supply, assumed.
I have no idea. I don't care about this. We should move on from this.
Okay. So the first question is, who is CSW?
A retard. Next question. How has the term FUD become prevalent? If you're older to Bitcoin at all, or you've been around, you should know what this means. But just in case you're new, FUD is short for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's not used just in the context of Bitcoin. It's like broader financial markets, technology. It's used for, but it's kind of been used by the maximalist. I guess you would call it the immune system kind of faction. So sometimes it can be used interesting ways where people will attack someone speaking skeptically at all about Bitcoin. They'll just cut them off and be like, "Oh, that's FUD. That's FUD. That's FUD. That's fear, uncertainty, and doubt." That's where it kind of that's one of the sharper edges on, like, is this a religion or a monetary technology? Because if you can't have rational, I guess, dissent or discussion about things, you're kind of falling into ideological behaviors that make Bitcoin seem more like a religion or a cult. Yeah. So I think there's like a right way and a wrong way to use the term FUD. I think, for example, saying Bitcoin is slow compared to other cryptocurrencies, that's like absolute FUD for me. Like, and that would go back to the discussion we were having earlier about final settlement. So for what we're achieving, which in the fiat world never functionally occurs, but if you believe, I guess, that it does occur, it's like T plus 30. That's invaluable and instantaneous by that standard. That 10-minute block time, that's virtually instantaneous. And with the Lightning Network, you could argue it's very, very quick, although Lightning Network is not final settlement. But anyway, so I don't know. I've had an interesting experience where I've been called out on spaces or, kind of these like big group voice chat things for talking about Lightning a little bit skeptically. People will be like, let me bust this FUD right now. I didn't mean to imply that Lightning itself is super insecure or something, but the actual argument I made when this happened, it got like these like maxis yelling at me. I myself am a Bitcoin maximalist, so it's kind of funny, but like just saying that Lightning is not layer one, you can acknowledge that, and there are trade-offs. Just saying that, and I had all these Bitcoiners freaking out and calling me. They're like, "I'm gonna bust this FUD. Let me show this guy." And they jumped up, interrupted, and took over the conversation. But I don't know, Q, what's your experience with the word? You've got kind of a longer history of interest in financial markets. So I'm wondering if you had any experience with it over there before coming here. Is it kind of a Bitcoin niche thing?
So I definitely heard the term FUD, but I will caveat it by saying the way FUD's used within the Bitcoin community or in reference to Bitcoin itself, in my experience, is different. I find that when we talk about FUD from the lens of Bitcoin, what you're really claiming is that's fake news. That's really at the core of what most Bitcoiners are saying when they say, "Oh, that's FUD." Oh no, that's fake news.
Mm,
What I've heard FUD is when you have legitimate concerns. Like the most recent example, a stock that I've held actually for a good amount of time that you see if you watch the news, TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor. It's literally the in the middle of every conversation about World War III, about US versus China. It produces 90% of the world's uh, high-end semiconductors. Okay. One of the one news story that I was reading literally started breaking down FUD. It like had a section labeled FUD. Now, in this section, it was talking about the risks of investing in this company, the fear of potential escalated conflict with China, the uncertainty of whether or not the US will take military action, and the doubt that has since risen. And what the article was essentially saying was, Warren Buffett took a position in this stock, but this was his shortest held stock in his last like 30 plus years, couldn't answer certain questions about the stock. So it wasn't so much about dispelling the fake news surrounding it. It was more used in the context of these are things to be fearful of. These are things to be uncertain about. These are things to be doubtful of. These are the questions you should be asking yourself about this. So that's the two sides of FUD that I've experienced, and just from my own experiences of seeing FUD used very casually. Um, on one side, it's fake news. On the other side, it's literally like mapping out questions to ask. But I don't know if you've had a similar experience to that or not.
I don't think it's been used productively in the Bitcoin space in the way that you just mentioned. I mean, we
And
should,
from the
yeah.
lens of like, oh, that's fake news, right?
I think people take it as fake news, but also just any sort of negativity or skepticism about the protocol itself could be met with, the FUD kind of moniker.
Oh, totally. It's like, oh, you don't believe enough. Oh, you haven't learned enough. You're not
Exactly,
a
exactly.
heart. It's like, stop. That's not what this was meant to do. What this was meant to
Right,
do was to be a launching pad to ask legitimate questions. Another
right.
thing that I get attacked for a lot, like at the conference, I got a little bit of flack for doing this, but I stand by it, and I'll
Did
say
you did you sneak in? Did
yeah.
you-
So Rizzo apparently like gave security like a picture of me and said, under no circumstances should this man be let in, and absolutely no circumstances should he be given a microphone. So he had a bitch fit when he saw me on the desk, but but before he could yank me off with one of those like old school canes where they just wrap it around your neck and then yank me, I did manage to quote unquote spread some FUD, where I was talking about how Bitcoin mining in particular is good for the environment, and how it should be used as a launching pad for anyone who cares about the environment. They should be pointing to Bitcoin. And
How
I
is
was
it? Can you describe how it is good for the environment?
Well, specifically, I was talking about how, we've created these systems to capture what would have been stranded and flared methane gas, and then pointed to Dan Batten's studies and research that he actually measured how much methane gas is just naturally in the air based on the current systems we have versus how much is in the air once you actually use this system to capture the stranded gas to energize mining rigs, and you actually have less methane gas in the atmosphere as a result. Like, scientifically, the maths. Okay. Now you may be in the class of people that's like, global warming's a psyop, this, that, or the other, and that's totally fine. But there's a class of people that is a priority to them, and they care about that. And instead of attacking them and telling them, oh, you're spreading FUD, you don't know what you're talking about, why don't we just meet them halfway? It takes a lot less energy for me to say, hey, you know what? I hear you. Like we should do something to not impact the environment. But why don't we mine more Bitcoin with all the wasted energy that otherwise ruins our environment? Because if we at least do that, then we actually are helping the environment out versus attacking everyone, saying, "Oh, you're spreading FUD for this." Dude, enough. Enough. Sorry, I rambled for way too long. But Rizzo shouldn't have hooked me off the stage. I was giving such a good talk.
I wasn't there for that one, but yeah, I think we've put FUD to bed here. Expect it to come back, especially as the price really starts pumping. Any naysayers shall be cast out. You know, this is a belief system, not a verifiable product.
It's so dumb. I hate
Let's
the
go.
cultiness.
It's kind of funny how it turns though, because when you first the community, I guess if you're part of like kind of the online, basically Bitcoin Twitter or Nostr, it can be comforting because you found people who are into a thing that you're into. Like, try to imagine when you first got here and you're interested in
Oh,
Bitcoin, now you have an unlimited fount of knowledge and kind of like wealthy people that can give you advice, and that part's nice. It's just it gets old fast as you kind of stop just yes manning everything and want to be maybe your own person or have your own thoughts or be skeptical. You start to bump up against some of the more fervent religious fanatics of the Bitcoin space. I don't think any of like way of approaching it's necessarily wrong. I just think like in the end, all of our actions are either aligned with Bitcoin at any given moment or they're not. Um, you know, I'd say right now we're doing this show for like 2 or 3 people every day. You know, small effect on the world largely, but you know, a net positive. We're certainly not harming Bitcoin by doing this. Now, if we started promoting CSW as Satoshi, that would be like a net negative, for example. Or if we start, I don't know, and then you get in these interesting arguments of like, okay, what about these runes? Like this development of ordinals, this development of runes, is this a net negative? Okay, it depends who you ask. The miners are incentivized. You know, you just doubled our revenue this month. Thank you. You know, everyone else who's trying to open a lightning channel on chain or, you know, send a transaction is like, well, my fees are now quadrupled. This is bad. This is spam. These digital artifacts are meaningless. Well, a whistleblower, on the other hand, might say, wait, this is great. I can release things pseudonymously that will appear on this chain forever. Okay. And then you have the people who are running these indexes of the inscriptions who are saying, okay, yeah, but that also means that like child predators can put images or like revenge porn or something super that everyone agrees is bad, like on this chain forever. So it's always a matter of perspective, is my point. And yeah, you should leave, you know, plenty of room for healthy debate and be prepared to contend with new information and change your opinion, because that's an important part of being a person. I think it's very strange to hold the same opinions about Bitcoin for years and cycles on end. You should grow and change with it because, oh, watch this segue. Whether or not you like it, it is changing. Let's talk about Taproot. So question is, what is Taproot? And how does it aim to improve Bitcoin? We'll just put Q on the spot here, and then I'll come in with some alpha and look really good at the end.
Well, in order to disappoint you fully, as though you were my mother or my father, I'm not only going to answer
Or your
this question.
girlfriend. Sorry. What?
You're so funny. Has anyone ever told you're like so funny?
That's why I have a show, bro.
Look, Taproot was a contentious update to say the least. It was activated, I think, in 2021, but it allowed I forget the type of signature, but in essence, it led to what it led to the ability of inscriptions and ordinals actually being able to be inscribed onto Satoshis. That wouldn't have happened without Taproot. I believe it was one of those like forced updates where there wasn't necessarily node consensus, and there were a lot of questions I remember about that moment in time in particular of, hey, we understand what this could be used for in the future. We don't really see use cases for it today. Should we even be pushing forward this update? And then a lot of questions started to arise about that. I remember people being like, there are potentially some unintended consequences that we're not thinking of. And then fast forward a year and you see ordinals, and then um that
Yeah,
raised.
it's important to note there was no concept of ordinals when Taproot was around, so nobody was using this as an argument not to update it. Really,
Yeah, the
well, I
argument.
can't say nobody, but that was not like a huge part of the conversation.
No, the part of the conversation that always stuck with me, and then like I didn't forget it, and it was really with me during the ordinals debate, was the fact that when Taproot was pushed forward, there are unintended consequences that we were not thinking of, that you unlock use cases, yes, that we're discussing, oh, it could be used for this, that, but then it also unlocks use cases that may be more malicious, or may not necessarily even come off as malicious, but could end up having malicious consequences. Um, how did I do?
Good. I would recharacterize it. I don't think it was that contentious. Like thinking back to that period of time, I don't remember very many anti-Taproot
No, there was
activists
no
out
one.
there.
It wasn't like it was, oh no, we shouldn't put this update through. There were just people with a lot of questions of like, why are we putting this update through?
Mhm.
Like, what's the purpose of this? Are we thinking this fully through?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of debate centered around how the update should be activated, given the history of the much more contentious SegWit activation a few years prior. I guess what it is, first of all, it's a soft fork upgrade to Bitcoin implemented November 2021 via speedy trial. It introduces a new transaction output version and like a bunch of new script operations to improve privacy, scalability, and functionality. So it allows for complex transaction types like multi-sigs to appear on chain as regular transactions, which has the obvious benefit of enhancing user privacy. Um, before you saw multi-sig on chain, you would know, okay, this user is using a multi-sig. So when I go to their house, I'm going to look for X number of keys rather than just a single hardware wallet or seed phrase somewhere. Um, so that's great. It also kind of paves the way for mysterious future improvements that we have yet to see on chain. Maybe they're coming. There's a lot of promises on Taproot that have not, and Lightning itself that have not really played out. Taro, or whatever that's called now. Um, I don't know if RGB uses Taproot in any meaningful way. I need to look into that. Seems like it would. But anyway, historically, it looks something like this. The upgrade was proposed by Peter Wolle in January 2018, so it's a lot older than people might be remembering. The BIP specifications, there was proposal 340, so Schnorr signatures, and 341, which is like the Taproot consensus layer, and 342, which is the validation of Taproot scripts. So a little bit of a bundle proposal there. There was discussion, like extensive review and testing in the developer community, in the mailing chain, the mailing list. And the overall sentiment was positive, but the problem was, how are we going to activate this without like triggering all of the, people with PTSD from SegWit? So the debate centered on how it should be activated. There was a desire to avoid conflict in general. So several mechanisms were proposed, including BIP 8, which allows for a miner activated soft fork with the possibility of a user activated soft fork. So this speedy trial thing's a little bit weird. So in 2021, speedy trial was chosen. Miners were given 3 months to signal their support for Taproot. You could see all these kind of very exciting websites spun up that were showing what percentage of the miners were signaling each block. When they signaled, it would like turn, I don't know, orange or green or something. So you could kind of see this progressive thing as consensus was gained and as your node was kind of uselessly hatching, unable to prevent this thing from happening. So if 90% of the blocks were within one difficulty adjustment period, so of about 2 weeks, signaled approval for this new Taproot activation, um, Taproot would be locked in, and it was. So the miners quickly turned around and signaled their support. And by June of 2021, you can imagine like MicroStrategy's been buying their first Bitcoin. I think this is around the time El Salvador announces Bitcoin as legal tender. The price is going absolutely nuts, and Taproot's locked in. And then in November of 2021, it was block 709632 is activated. It became part of the Bitcoin protocol. So interesting fun fact. Look back at this historical soft fork. They're kind of proposing something similar with drive chains today. This sort of speedy trial miner activation method. I don't love it. I think this is like a disproportionate amount of power for miners to have. I would rather rough consensus via node upgrade and users actually have to go and, you know, upgrade their node to choose or remain in the a previous version to not use it. But that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. You can always choose to ignore Taproot.
So let me ask you this though, in that
Uh-huh.
situation you presented, like there are some risks as well. Like could you or could you not create some sort of a fork unintentionally by requiring everyone to shift, and then if people don't migrate over, whether because they don't want to or because they don't know how
Well,
to?
Well, we're talking about soft forks, so they're backwards compatible. So it doesn't ultimately matter if people. I mean, it matters, but you don't have to do the upgrade. You can run older versions of Bitcoin if you want to. Um,
Okay.
the key thing is like what gains consensus and how are these ideas introduced, and is there fair like room for rebuttal and kind of risk assessment and um, threat modeling. I'm not a developer, so it's kind of hard for me to speak on this nuance, but we could do some research and talk in a future episode about the different trade-offs of different BIP activation proposals, the difference between the approach of like a Jeremy Rubin or, a Paul Stork or any number of I guess potentially viable changes to Bitcoin that are being proposed today. We could also have someone with even more historical context come on and talk about some of this stuff. I think it's interesting. It's super important, but you're at the level where like your average Bitcoin user, if 1 in 10 Americans hold crypto, it's like 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in 1,000,000 run their own node. How many of those are going to signal for anything on any level? I don't know. It's a big education endeavor. And I think the miners took an opportunity in Taproot where, we can bypass this. It's easier to present a more efficient solution for people where it's like they don't have to do any work. We'll just tell them what to believe. That's a scary place to be. So encourage everybody to run their own node and to realize the full potential of it by kind of digging into the developer mailing list as much as you can and learning as much as you can so that you can ultimately have somewhat of a voice and be a resource for whatever it is you believe the future of Bitcoin should be. But yeah, I guess that's my rant on that. Have
I
you
dig it.
used Taproot yet in any way?
Nope.
Cool.
I think
Did you ever mint any ordinal inscriptions?
no, absolutely not.
Really? Avoided day one. No interest.
Zero interest. And for me, like I I remember for a moment buying into that argument of like, oh, but like, censored content could be put on as inscriptions, people who live in jurisdictions that have stricter internet. And like,
Yeah.
look, I've got family in Iran. Like you're speaking my language when you talk like that.
Hmm.
And then once I started to like dig, okay, but like how would they be able to access it? And more specifically, like how would they be able to access it in a way where if they operate it within a censorship resistant internet, they would be able to, I don't know, get access to this information without any um issues. And it was, oh, you need to run the node with this update, and you also need to then have some sort of a VPN protecting you, which isn't difficult to do, but it starts to stretch you much thinner than you realize. And I don't actually think that this is a realistic solution to this problem in the way that it's been pitched.
No,
I,
Noster's way easier
yeah, I
in
don't think
inscribing.
the access to information on inscriptions is as readily as available as this argument would lead you to believe. So,
Yeah, I mean, nobody's like people are indexing these things, but nobody's parsing all these gigs and gigs of bullshit that are being inscribed. Unless if you
dude,
look at a real-time
the,
indexer, it's just like endless pictures of turtles and like cartoons. Like it doesn't.
dude, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was when I found an inscription that was just someone farting. It
Yeah,
was
there's all
literally,
kinds of weird stuff. There's like more and less interesting use cases for this. The vast majority of it, I agree, is like complete useless kind of spam. I think the human rights sort of argument, the whistleblower argument, was cool for about a second until Nostr came along, and then it was like, okay, well, Nostr's free, so there's no competition there
and
because these
way easy. Like
inscriptions,
you could just type it in and it's there.
yeah, yeah, no identity required, no kind of weird on-chain financial transactions required. You don't have to, yeah, you don't have to pay anything. So I think it'll always win as a freedom of speech. Um, Bitcoin promotes freedom of speech in another way, which is your freedom to transact and run open source protocols and use the money that you want to use, basically. Cool. Well, that's three questions in our three little news stories for the day. We're holding steady here at 28,300. In no rush to go anywhere soon with this price. I'm enjoying these cheap stats.
Send it down.
Send it down. Yeah, send it all.
I look forward to more Bitcoin is dead articles. I tend to be happier during those articles.
During those articles. Well, yeah, because you're on the right side of the asymmetric bet. So you kind of want to be at odds as a trader against kind of all this momentum and everybody else. That's how you get these tail end returns. So it's, I think things are going well as long as people are still attacking Bitcoin and to try it. We're doing quite well because we're just going to accumulate more good times. Well, we may or may not be back tomorrow, but I think for Wednesday we're on for sure. Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks for joining us this morning. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you're on Rumble or YouTube, or if you're on Zap.stream. Super appreciate the sats. Definitely our favorite platform. We're 1 month out from Nostrasia, so I'm super excited to see anybody that's coming out there. I'll also be in Amsterdam for a couple days next week, so come say hi if you're in the Netherlands. Hang out.
Or if
Cool.
you're pack Bitcoin this week, I'll be there
Oh yeah, when is that?
this week, Thursday, Friday.
Nice. Cool. We'll catch you later, guys. Thank you.